From Grangeville to Lapway, we've got your District 2 breakdown right here on the Palouse Prepcast with Garrison Hardie.
That's right, breaking down everything you need to know in District 2 in the state of Idaho. It is the Palouse Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com. I'm Brandon Baney, joined by Garrison Hardie, the guy who is so happy that we've officially turned the page on summer and we're into the fall season, right?
Amen. Amen. As a ginger, I tell you, this time of year is the best. The weather's starting to get cooler. Up here in Moscow, we've been in the 60s, the 70s. This is perfect, let me tell you. So, yeah, this is just great.
Yeah, it's definitely getting cooler at night where I'm at as well. And I'm not a ginger, right? I have blonde hair kind of, but same thing. I'm very fair-skinned. I'm largely Norwegian heritage, which is a fair-skinned people. And as you can see up top, there's not much left. So when my hair's this short, I have to wear a hat. Otherwise, it's bad news. So
yeah, no protection up there. You know, fortunately for now, I've got this up here. But yeah, everywhere else, incredibly fair-skinned, and the sun is my mortal enemy. So less of it, the better.
Absolutely. So if you want to see the beautiful ginger locks of Garrison Hardie, or you want to see the lacking coverage up top on my dome, you can, of course, watch the video of the Palouse Prepcast each and every week on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page. Or if you just want to catch the audio, you can also do that at IdahoSports.com. Right on the homepage, there's a drop-down menu of Prepcasts, all of our Prepcasts around the state. You just click on the Palouse Prepcast, or you can also download this podcast wherever you download your podcasts. So last night, let's see, Monday Night Football, Packers beat the Lions, but where you're at up north in the Palouse, it was Monday Night Volleyball. There was a lot of volleyball action going on, which is pretty exciting.
That it is. You and I have talked about this before. This time of year with high school sports in general are just flying all over the place. And it's a really refreshing thing to see. The kids are able to come out and play. Last year with the pandemic being in the middle of that, a lot of these sports weren't happening. So to be able to see these kids out on the court, on the field, you name it, it's really refreshing to see.
Yeah, so let's recap real quick what happened in volleyball last night. The big matchup was in the White Pine League. We kind of talked about it last week on the Prepcast, Garrison, this big, gigantic showdown between Troy and Potlatch, these powers that came in with these gaudy records, and the winner would be on the inside track for the #1 spot in the conference standings. It didn't disappoint, but Troy came away with a 3-0 sweep of Potlatch, and really it was very one-sided. I was pretty surprised. The Trojans won in straight sets, 25-14, 25-8, 25-13. That's really Troy putting on a performance.
Well, absolutely. And of course, it's spearheaded by Morgan Blazard, one of the best players, well, in District 2. She's committed to go to the next level, I believe, at a school in Washington. So her athleticism really, like I said, spearheads the charge. And, you know, Troy is just an all-around solid team. Everywhere the ball goes, they've got defenders that can make the play, keep it live, and then get the ball back over the net, excuse me. So as good as Potlatch's record was coming into this, I'm really not surprised to see Troy's dominance, especially when you look at their game against Genesee. Genesee, I think, is kind of that dark horse when it comes to this division, or this conference, rather. And that was a little bit more competitive, especially with the likes of Lucy Ranasad on that front line. So for me, those are the two teams to keep an eye on. But again, Troy's dominance just continues on.
Yeah, so Troy with the win is 7-0 in White Pine play. They're 9-3 overall. Same with Potlatch. They're 9-3 overall, and they are 6-1 now, the lone blemish that lost to Troy. In the victory, Jolie Eklund for Troy had a great night on the service line. She was 14 of 15 on serves with 3 aces as well, so that was pretty impressive stuff. Otherwise, last night, you had some kind of cross-divisional matchups involving some White Pine League teams. Clearwater Valley was taking on Timberline from Weippe, and Timberline is a 1A D2 program, and they defeated Clearwater Valley 3-1. The Stemrich sisters were the stars in that matchup, Garrison. You had Mary Beth Stemrich is a senior, and she had 9 aces in service. And then her younger sister, Lizzie Stemrich, is a freshman, and she had 8 assists. So that's kind of how it is in small-town volleyball. A lot of times it's siblings teaming up, right?
Yeah, the families take over. We've talked about the Hasselstroms over in Prairie, so let's bring it over to the volleyball side of things. And, we talk about the different divisions and the different sizes of the schools and whatnot. In volleyball, that's not quite as prevalent as it might be in football. In volleyball, if you have a couple of star stud players that can really do it all across the court, do numerous jobs, and as long as they're keeping the ball in play, they're a threat. So for Timberline out of WEI, what a solid victory.
And then at the 1A D2 level, we did have a conference matchup between Highland in Craigmont and Deary, and the Huskies defeat Deary 3-1. Casey Hudson had, Channy Brammer was 20 of 20 in service with also 19 assists. So that's a strong serving game and also a strong passing game when she rotated towards the front lines. That was pretty awesome. And then Orofino, I think, is going to be a really good 2A volleyball program this year. They did lose some really talented players, but I think they are the favorite in the Central Idaho League. They swept Kendrick last night 3-0. Casey Hudson had 8 kills and 9 digs for the Maniacs in the victory there. So it's nice to see Orofino. They've kind of been struggling in football. In soccer, they actually have a co-ed team, boys and girls, and they compete against other boys teams around the area. And so volleyball, it's nice to see Orofino playing well.
Absolutely. Same with kind of Deary on the football side of things. We would hope that volleyball victory would have maybe balanced it out a little bit. Not meant to be, unfortunately. The things didn't go so hot on the football side of things that Jason and I were at. But good for Orofino to have a program that's having some success there.
Yeah, absolutely. So just real quick, I'll recap the volleyball standings. White Pine League, Troy 7-0, 9-3 overall. Potlatch is 6-1 and 9-3 overall. And then, you talked about Prairie is 5-2 in the league, 8-4 overall, and then Genesee 5-3 in the league, 7-5 overall. It's pretty clear those 4 teams, Troy, Potlatch, Prairie, and Genesee, are going to be kind of duking it out all season long. At the 1A D2 level for volleyball up in District 2, also the White Pine League, Kendrick is 5-0. They're undefeated, 6-1 overall. Their first loss of the season last night to Orofino. Deary's at 3-2, Highland at 2-2, and then St. John Bosco, the Catholic school in Cottonwood, is 2-3 in the league, 4-4 overall. So looks like good competitive volleyball there. And then I just wanted to mention Orofino really quickly as well, talking about the Maniacs and the great season they're having out on the volleyball court. 7-3 overall, Garrison, including 2-0 in the league. They've already defeated both Grangeville and St. Mary's. So a leg up on the competition there.
Absolutely. And with every win, confidence is gained, momentum is gained. So if they can keep this rolling and keep it on rolling through some tough competition, who knows how that's going to finish out for them. So that's some great stuff right there.
Yeah, so we kind of wanted to kick off the show today with some volleyball just because it was kind of front of mind. We're recording this on Tuesday, and there was a ton of volleyball last night. The last volleyball thing I wanted to mention was one of the great tournaments of the season usually was supposed to be this weekend, the Battle of the Border, where you have Idaho schools competing against Washington schools. It's always held in Pomeroy, Washington. Well, because of COVID-19, they canceled it for this year, and that's unfortunately, I think we're back to where we were last year, Garrison, where if you're having to play a lot of teams from another state, it's probably not going to happen. It's going to have to be strictly in-state matchups.
Right. And fortunately for the kids here in Idaho, they're able to play. We're politics aside, we're just a little bit more free when it comes to the COVID-19 restrictions, and that pays dividends for the kids. And we talked about that on the football side of things with kids coming in from California out of state, from Washington out of state, just for the chance to play. And that's really important to parents a lot of the times, to be able to let their kids make these memories in their high school days, because they're not going to get these years back. And a lot of kids are not going to go to the next level of playing sports. So to lose out on the opportunity to have play some high school athletics, especially if that's something the kids really enjoy, that's tough to see. So I for one am happy that we here in Idaho, the kids are able to play whatever their respective sport is.
Yep, for sure. So I know we had a couple of teams that were slated to play Genesee, Troy, Prairie, and Kamei. We're going to go compete in that border of the battle of the border in Pomeroy, but that is no longer on the table. All right, so let's talk about football. You kind of mentioned the game that you were at last week with Jason. There was an audio-only broadcast on IdahoSports.com. Potlatch in a big way over Deary, 60-8. Deary was a pretty decent team last year. They took second in the 1A D2 White Pine League, but now a 1-3 start to the season. Garrison, what did you see from that game?
Well, what I saw was a complete shellacking in the first half. It was 60-0 at halftime, and then the final score was 60-8. So Potlatch came in with a mission in mind, and they came out, executed flawlessly, both offensively and defensively, and accomplished their mission, got out with a win, and it was a victory coming off of the loss from Prairie. So to be able to go into a hostile environment, come out with a win in that fashion, that's going to build their confidence moving forward. On Deary's side of things, I saw an inexperienced team. They had a lot of freshmen and sophomores on that team. They're in a bit of a rebuilding phase, I would say, and the coaching staff's doing a good job. It's just it is what it is sometimes. Sometimes you run into experienced, strong, and fast teams like Potlatch, who, by the way, is division up on Deary. So they had the roster advantage as far as size goes, and defensively, that front seven for Potlatch, what a threat. The IdahoSports.com player of the game, Isaac McNeilson, he was all over the field, both offensively and defensively, but especially defensively. His presence was incredibly impressive. His ability to fill the gap and shoot the gap, blow up plays. He was a menace, and that's why Jason and I gave him the IdahoSports.com player of the game. So all in all, very impressive game for Potlatch. And Jason and I were talking after the game. Suddenly, we're considering them a top 4 threat for the White Pine League.
Okay, interesting. That was going to be my next question. First of all, I think that's awesome that you guys gave the IdahoSports.com player of the game to a defensive guy. That doesn't happen a lot. So I think that's pretty cool. And keep up the good work up there.
Well, to be fair, he did catch a couple of touchdowns, so it was a little of both. But yes, what struck me the most was his instinct at linebacker. It was really impressive.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the White Pine League, because coming into the season, we did the preseason coaches poll, and like I told you, everyone pretty much said Prairie 1 and Clearwater Valley 2 for the most part, and then after that, it was all over the place. I mean, Potlatch was as high as 4th in one poll; they were as low as 8th in a poll. So that's where I think we're really gonna. I can't wait till we really start to dive into the White Pine League and see where everybody actually stands, because I do think this thing is kind of wide open. I think if we're reassessing right now, I think obviously Prairie at the top. I think Genesee is probably a strong number 2 after their victory over Clearwater Valley. But then after that, I think the next couple of spots are up for grabs. And I think we could definitely see 4, and depending on how it shakes out, maybe even 5 teams get into the playoffs this year from the White Pine League.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you look at Clearwater Valley, and nobody really predicted this tough of start for them. But in the back end of the schedule, they could very well pick up a couple of wins here, and suddenly they reinsert themselves back into the conversation. We just don't know. They still have the talent. They still have the coaching staff that's going to put them in positions to succeed. So we could very well be talking about the Rams at some point. Talk about impressive. We saw hints of this last year before COVID kind of canceled the rest of their season, and now we're seeing the fruits of that labor. The new coach, Justin Podrabski's done a fantastic job of setting this team up for success, and they've gone out and executed to their credit. And so Genesee, talk about it's going to be interesting to see when they go up against Prairie, where they're going to stack up. Obviously, everybody, like you said, was talking about Prairie, and they've gone out and done what they needed to do. The Loggers, and then Lapway too. Both of those teams, I think, are going to be conversation when it comes down to it. It's going to be interesting to see where all of this stuff shakes out, kind of like you said.
And I still think you can't count out Cami either. I know they lost to Lapway 60-28, but Cubs are always lurking too. So yeah, Genesee 3-0 overall, and they've all been conference games so far, Garrison. So they are 3-0 in the White Pine League as well. So they are the top dog, literally, right? Genesee Bulldogs, right? So they're all alone in first place for now. What a wild game they had with Clearwater Valley, and I feel bad for Alan Hutchins, the coach at CV, because he's probably thinking to himself, what have I gotten myself into here? First game of the year against Raft River, one of the title favorites in 1A D1, and they lose that game pretty badly. They get a week off, and then they turn around and have to play Prairie. That's the league favorite, and then 1A D1 title favorite right away. And then they think, okay, here's Genesee. That's not easy, but it's a matchup we like. They're 2-0, and we're looking for our first win. They had the lead until late in the game when Angus Jordan, who, again, I think is probably one of the best pure passers in the White Pine League. Angus Jordan throws the game-winning touchdown pass to Cy Wareham with 25 seconds to play, and that gives Genesee the 50-44 win. I mean, just heartbreak city for CV at the end. I mean, what do they got to do here?
Oh, gosh, they just got to keep trucking along. We saw a lot of good things from that game, despite the gut-punching loss. You know, they were still putting up points offensively. They were making some plays defensively. Obviously, couldn't come up with it at the very end. I think the coaching staff with Clearwater Valley has to look at the tape and see that, hey, we're heading in the right direction here. We had a lot of good things in that game against Genesee. It just so happens that Genesee is also a really good team, and they just got the better. They had the ball last. they got the better of us there. So, you know, tip your cap to Genesee, move on and keep your seat. Holy cow, what a start. And to go on a 2+ hour road trip to go into Clearwater Valley, where Jason, Paul and I have called a game from there rather, and they've got some pretty rabid fan support. So to be able to go into that environment, put up 50 points on a pretty solid team, that is really impressive. So again, hats off to Genesee being the top dogs, as you mentioned. Yeah, Clearwater Valley, just keep trucking along. You know, starting 0, nobody wants to start 0-3 at all. But if the locker room believes in the talent that they have, and they're able to just take that first game, and then as cliche as it sounds, one game at a time. You're not going to get those 3 games back in one game. So just week by week, move forward.
Yeah, and so we'll see if they can turn it around this week. Other scores from the White Pine League, we talked about Lapway defeating Kamei 60-28. You had Prairie defeating Logos 72-24, putting up a pretty big statement there as well. So if we look at the White Pine standings, Genesee all alone 3-0 in the league, 3-0 overall. Prairie and Lapway are both 2-0 in conference play, and then Potlatch and Kamei are each 1-1. That's followed by Troy and Clearwater Valley, which are both 0-2, and then Logos bringing up the rear at 0-3. You know, Logos got that first win in their first varsity game ever, and then they found out, well, life in the White Pine League maybe isn't so easy, and 3 losses in a row for Logos. But top to bottom, this is a competitive league, and like I said, it's kind of like the Big 12, right? Everybody's got a high octane offense, and a lot of times it comes down to which team's got the ball last. So
that's right. You know, the ball's flying all over the place. The field is wide open with 8-man football, and that's what makes it so darn exciting. So for some of these big matchups coming up, we're just gonna have to see where the chips fall. And, you know, it's been a lot of fun thus far, and I can't believe we're already heading towards October. So it's about to get real.
Yes, it is for sure. And then the 1A D2 White Pine League, Kendrick, I think, is the clear favorite there. And you talked about with Deary maybe being a younger team and kind of rebuilding. And I said this coming into the preseason. I think this has opened the door for Lewis County, the co-op between Nez Perce, Highland, and Cul-de-sac. I think for Lewis County, that's opened the door for them to possibly sneak into the playoffs as that second place finisher in the 1A D2 ranks. What do you think?
Oh, I could definitely see it. For Deary, like I said, that they're kind of in a rough spot here. Obviously, for them, the back end of their schedule is going to be where they could potentially shake things up. But with them being so young and still needing a little bit more time to develop, I think this is 100% the chance for Lewis County to jump into that number 2 spot and really challenge for the Division II.
Yeah. So if we look at the schedule for the White Pine Leagues, 1AD1, 1AD2, it's actually going to be a pretty good slate of games coming up this week, Garrison. At the 1AD2 level, you've got the 4 teams that are in the conference playing each other. So you've got what I think is the 2 top teams, Lewis County at Kendrick. We'll see how close Lewis County is to the class of the league in Kendrick. And then at the other end, you've got Deary hosting Timberline. And so Timberline's a team that has only gotten to play 2 games so far. They've been affected by some COVID-19 stuff, I think, at their school. So they haven't gotten as many games as everybody else, but those should be pretty interesting. And then in the 1AD1 White Pine League, you've got Troy at Kamei. That's a matchup of teams that are trying to get back on the right side of 500. You've got Clearwater Valley traveling to Logos. That's the game that you're going to be calling on IdahoSports.com Friday night at 7 o'clock. This is going to be a great opportunity for the Rams to finally get that first win of the season.
It is. And, they're coming in against a Logos team that has some athletes, but obviously is still, as far as their place in the White Pine League and just getting adjusted to varsity football. So for Clearwater, you're right. This could definitely be a big time chance to go in to an away venue and shake off those first 3 losses and open up with a win. And Coach Holloway, when I talked to him weeks ago, I told him we're going to be back for the Clearwater game, and he said, well, we know that's going to be a test. So Logos is realistic about it. They know where their weaknesses and their strengths lie. So it's going to be interesting to see if what Logos has learned too. Obviously, they've had some brutal losses on their end thus far, but Coach Holloway said that's all part of the learning process. And so both of these teams have a chance to go out and execute. And we'll see who comes out on top. But I know Jason and I are excited to be back out at Logos, that new field, and we're ready to watch some good football between these 2 teams.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one for sure. This Friday night, video coverage on IdahoSports.com with Garrison and Jason. So the other White Pine League games, Prairie traveling to Potlatch. We'll find out real quick where Potlatch sits, and then. I think a good test for Genesee as they travel to Lapway. And so we're going to get some separation, and I think we're going to come back next week, Garrison, and have a better idea of maybe how things sit in this wide open White Pine League.
Yeah, with Genesee and Prairie, if they're able to come out on top, it would be those 2 up at the top of the table, and then just we'll have to see how the rest of the season would shake out. And then for Potlatch and Lapway, if they want to sneak back further into if Potlatch is able to pull this off, talk about quite an impressive start to their season. A team that nobody really necessarily thought of early on as being in the conversation for the top 4, but they've done an impressive job. They play good, hard-nosed football. And then with Lapway, I mean, you've got Titus Year out at quarterback. What an impressive athlete who's already committed to the University of Idaho for basketball. So his mobility could present problems to Genesee, who gave up 44 points last week. So 2 interesting matchups. Obviously, Prairie's favored in 1. And then Genesee and Lapway, they kind of have a friendly rivalry between those 2 schools. So that's going to be a fun one to keep an eye on. And folks, you can watch it all on IdahoSports.com. Obviously, Jason and I will be up at Logos, but you can check out numerous games on the IdahoSports.com scoreboard.
That's right. Our Friday Night Flash is back, Garrison. Our intern Keller operates that on Friday nights, and he is giving live real-time updates on games all across the state of Idaho. So It's really awesome. And if anyone's out there listening, okay, and you are at a game, like let's say you're going to be at that Genesee Lapway game. Well, you know, we're a small staff at IdahoSports.com. We can't be everywhere, right? So what we really need is help from all of you fans that are out there in the field, so to speak. So if you're at a game and you want to send a score update along to our intern Keller, you can text our Friday Night Flash score hotline. That's right. We have a Friday Night Flash hotline. I'll give you the number real quick so you can jot it down. It's 208-639-9072. 208-639-9072. That is our Friday Night Flash score hotline. And so if you text updates of the game you're at, intern Keller will get it. He'll put it up on the scoreboard, and it's a pretty cool deal. We're excited to bring that back. So yeah, I know you probably like me, Garrison, at halftime of whatever game you're broadcasting. I'm checking the flash to see what the scores are so I can report them on air.
Oh, 100%. Jason, my co-host Jason, does a great job of always pulling that up and seeing what storylines we can start talking about. You know, especially not to be disrespectful, but if the game's a blowout, then we can start piecing together storylines of what it looks like going forward next week, depending on what conference we're covering. So Lewiston's another team we cover pretty frequently. So if we're there 5A, we'll start piecing together, okay, here's what it looks like here with Coeur d'Alene here, Post Falls here, here's where Lewiston sits, and here's the matchups going forward next week. We'll look at that. So it's the scoreboard is a great resource for us. So shout out to the intern there for helping us out.
Yeah, absolutely. Intern Keller doing a great job. So yeah, we'll get to Lewiston in just a second. We're kind of working our way up the food chain here. So real quick, let's stop by 2A. Grangeville did finally get their first win of the season last week. They played on Thursday night. Actually, they hosted McCall Donnelly on Thursday night, and they won 7-6. A win's a win. They're 1-3. They're off the schneid, which is great to see.
Hey, I don't care how ugly the win is. Like you said, dust yourself off, move on. Let's learn what we can from that game, and let's focus on our next opponent here. And it's interesting to see how they're going for that Thursday night football TV money there. So that's going to be something to watch as it develops going forward.
Well, I think they're back into the traditional Friday night slot this week. So
those were the shot.
Right. It doesn't get any easier for Grangeville, though. They're hosting Kellogg, a good 3A program that's, by the way, 3-0. So
oh, perfect. Yeah. Well, you and I talked about Grangeville's schedule to before the season kicked off, and boy, was it packed full of opponents. And obviously, you saw what the administrators and coaching staff were going for. They're hoping that, well, if they're able to put together a solid win-loss record with that schedule, that's going to bode very favorably for them come playoff time. But it just hasn't panned out thus far. But another opportunity to pick up a win here, despite the tough opponent. We'll see what the Bulldogs come up with.
For sure. Orofino was shut out by Bonners Ferry 35-0. The Maniacs are 0-3. Good opportunity for a win, though, as they travel to Marsing Friday night. Marsing is a team that has struggled for some time. And so a fellow 2A program, I think this might be Orofino's best chance yet to finally snap that losing skid and get a victory. I would be very surprised if Orofino did not come away with a win in this matchup with Marsing. Marsing's just not in a good spot right now as a program. 4A level, Moscow, big victory over Pullman, 47-7. This is the Moscow offense we were expecting to see. They've kind of been bogged down the first couple of games, but the Bears finally, 3-1, and the offense is looking good.
Yeah, we talked about the inexperience at quarterback coming into this season and how they had a new quarterback taking over the offense. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the first couple of games. And also offense is a much harder side of the ball to get control of per se. There a lot more has to go right on offense than on defense, where, as long as you hit the guy and keep them in front of you, you're doing a pretty good job. And fortunately, Moscow's defense is really what stepped up in those first couple of games there in those ditches. And then finally they were rewarded. Pullman's obviously in a bit of a bad way. They've just been had the wheels beaten off of them lately. But talk about a big confidence booster for Moscow going to beat your cross-border rivalry in that fashion. Such a good feeling for that quarterback. And like you said, with that offense, they like to play vertically. Boy, did they ever. So we'll see if that momentum can carry with them going forward.
Yeah, tough challenge. They're going to play up this week at 5A Lake City. They will travel to Coeur d'Alene to play the Timberwolves. So that'll be a good measuring stick for Moscow. And speaking of 5A, we got to talk about the Lewiston Bengals. I mean, they traveled all the way to Yakima, Washington last week and defeated Eisenhower, the Eisenhower Cadets, 63-21. This is the Lewiston offense we're expecting to see, Garrison. This is the first 4-0 start for Lewiston since the 2016 season. They went undefeated in the regular season that year. They went 9-0, including a thrilling 55-51 win over Coeur d'Alene before they were subsequently bounced in their playoff opener by Rocky Mountain. But so this is the first time in some time that Lewiston's off to a 4-0 start.
And you got to look at their offense on how impressive it has been. And that you got to look at the play of Jace McArcher at quarterback, Cruz Hepburn in the backfield, James White, Elliott Taylor are a couple other names I'll throw out there, as well at wide receiver, Jared Jelinek, who's also a feisty cornerback who has the ability to take it to the house. We saw a 100-plus yard interception return for a touchdown. So this team has athletes scattered across the field, and then it's all kind of stuck together with that powerful front seven. And on both sides of the ball, the offensive line does a great job of opening the holes for Hepburn and McArcher. And then on the defensive side of things, they get a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And when you tie it all, it looks mighty impressive. And this go-go offense, this is what it would have looked like probably last year had they not had numerous injuries at important key positions to where they had backups coming in trying to do their best to fill those spots, but the production just wasn't there. Now this is what we're seeing with the go-go offense. This is what the new system was supposed to look like, having over a year of working with it. Coach Pancari's got his team rolling.
Absolutely. So Garrison at 4-0, they've already surpassed their win total from last year. They only went 3-6 a year ago. And when we start talking about, because in 5A football, 12 of the 20 teams make the playoffs. And so usually four wins is going to get you in. 5 will definitely get you in. And last year, I think there was a 3-6 team that made the playoffs. So for Lewiston, I mean, they're there. I mean, they are right there. And as I look at their schedule the rest of the way, they're playing Sandpoint. They got to travel to Sandpoint this week, and that's going to be a tough game. Sandpoint's a really good 4A program. After that, they play Moscow. I think that's a very winnable game for Lewiston. And then they've got the 3 conference games, Post Falls, Lake City, Coeur d'Alene. So I think Lewiston is setting itself up already because of this start. I think we're going to see the Bengals in the playoffs this year.
I think you're right to think that way. I mean, with Sandpoint, you're right. It's going to be a tough contest. Moscow is going to be a test in its own right. But last year they played Moscow, and Moscow had a very solid tight end who, by the way, is now playing at the University of Utah. No big deal. And that game was that was a very close game. I think it was 28-20 was the final score. And Lewiston, banged up as they were right there with them. So I think Lewiston has got the edge in that matchup. And then you look at the conference side of things. Post Falls is a little bit inexperienced on offense. I think Lewiston could trip them up. Lake City, especially because a lot of starters from last year are back, and they're a pretty big team. And then, of course, Coeur d'Alene. It is Coeur d'Alene. It is what it is. That being said, Lewiston can easily pick up a couple of wins here in the rest of their schedule. And like you said, we're talking playoffs. And I think Coach Pancari and his staff are primed and ready to go for that. And then, of course, the question would be what's going to happen when they run into those Boise schools. But still, Lewiston's got to be happy with their positioning. They've taken care of business thus far. I can't do so in the next couple of games here.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see if Lewiston can keep it rolling. They were number 5 in the media poll last week in the 5A ranks, and I'm sure they'll stay there with another victory. So 4-0 to start. And again, they're traveling to Sandpoint Friday night to take on the Bulldogs. So it's going to be another exciting week of action, Garrison. You're going to be in Moscow calling the Logos Clearwater Valley game. And I think we're going to find out. We're finally getting into the part of the season now where the good teams are having to play each other. And we're going to find out, I think, a lot more. We're going to sound a lot smarter a week from now. Uh-oh, we lost him. Garrison froze up on us. You can see he's smiling. He agrees with me.
Can you hear me?
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I could still hear you. In any case, I think Clearwater Valley's got a big opportunity to get their first win on the board. Logos, that's why these games aren't played on paper. Clearwater Valley may be favored, but Logos, they've got hardworking boys over there who are going to go out and give their all. And then the very next week, we'll be covering, I'll be doing a Hardie Boy broadcast down in Lewiston as they take on Post Falls. So, or maybe that's a couple weeks from now. In any case, that's where the broadcast is heading. But this week, we'll see you live from Logos.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Friday night, 7 o'clock on IdahoSports.com. So enjoy all of the football action, volleyball action where you can get it, and soccer as well. Cross country's off and running. And so swimming is underway. So it's a busy time of year. It's an exciting time of year, and we'll be back to recap it all for you again next week on another edition of the Palouse Prepcast. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. For Garrison Hardie, I'm Brandon Baney on IdahoSports.com.